Hello everyone, welcome to ARG Presents. Today we will be looking at serious games that somehow ended up funny. Aaron?
Wow. That was something. This is why we don't let this guy do the open. That's right, folks. We're going to look we spun the wheel, the whole 9 yards, bam. Serious games that are funny. Look, it's written right on your shirt, dude. What an idiot you are, the Brent. So we spun the wheel last week, and this is the topic that came up, and we figured, what the hell, we're going to get into this thing. Brent, when you think of serious games that are funny, what do you think of?
Bad voice acting.
Is that the first thing?
Immediately.
The first thing I think of are like really bad cutscenes.
Bad cutscenes will get you there too.
So can you cite some examples, the Brent, of these sorts of things?
I know a lot of your Kojima games, your Metal Gear Solids, have such over-the-top cutscenes that are also trying to have this serious overtone.
Yeah.
Fighting games, holy cow! Some of the cutscenes in those are now. Granted, fighting games, you're not holding that serious edge for most of them.
Yeah.
I guess Tekken, you're trying to be serious. You know, you're trying to have that. Especially your Tekken's 2s and 3s, you're trying to have that dramatic feel, where he gets ready to throw him off the cliff, but they know that ultimately they're going to be silly, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a little bit different. But like Kojima is the master of trying to be serious, and it ends up just being hilarious.
Well, when I think of different stuff than you on this. Because a lot of times what takes me out of a serious game or when it does dumb and funny stuff. And I'll give you an example. If you're playing a game, and I'll use City of Heroes as a good example.
Okay.
You are playing a hero and you're in the toughest part of town, but no one screws with you, despite the fact there are muggings and stuff going on. They just sort of let you go by.
Well, I mean,
because they don't want to screw with you. I also like games that the NPC character takes you through some stuff, and you're going through what are tons and tons of enemies. They just let you slide right through. I like the idea of when stuff goes wrong in the game. Like I don't mean glitches, but just like in the middle of a cutscene. I guess it would be a glitch. Like a guy gets ran over or shot. That's the kind of stuff that takes you out
of it.
Like
the Madden where the ambulance comes on the field and when it leaves, it runs over all the other players.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, with all that said, I had a difficult time. I started thinking about this last Sunday as soon as the show was over.
I would hope so. That's how it works.
I went there. But normally I linger for a couple of days. But I sat around pondering. Like, what would I don't know what this category is exactly. I had to really sit around and think about it. And I had a heck of a time coming up with. Did you come up with any games that you passed on?
I was thinking about doing like some of the Telltale games.
Yeah. That
have some of the serious overtones. But I didn't really want to get into commercial stuff like Walking Dead or Batman, which, means you pretty much have to go to the Borderlands series of games, which those were set up to be funny.
Right.
So I did start down that path and ended up choosing something differently, though.
I chose a game that I abandoned because it was going to be too expensive to get. There's this game. It's sort of like a Splinter Cell or something game, but it's based on this guy. I wish I could remember the name. It's based on a real life soldier. All right, and apparently this real life soldier is some kind of it's portrayed as some sort of a combination of Clint Eastwood and Ash from Evil Dead.
I know what you're talking about.
Foul mouth, and this character was voiced by a famous actor, and so I thought to myself, this might be pretty funny. But again, I watched this and it looked dumb.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sure. It was sort of serious. But when this guy's throwing out quips left and right, I had trouble going with it. Plus, I want to pay $60 for garbage.
Yeah.
So there you go. So I ended up. I had to sit back and ponder, but I figured one out. You want to just get into it here? There's not a whole lot to say on these.
Let's do it.
So when we pondered this, I thought to myself, listen, I'm going to go back to the TV roots here, or movies. I want to come up with something like maybe a film that had a really bad video game, and there are plenty of those.
Oh yeah,
I could have went with like Highlander or the ZX
Mortal
Spectrum.
Kombat.
Yeah, well, Mortal Kombat, the game was good, but the movie was, even it was, there or like Hudson Hawk, or there's a ton of bad movies that had dumb games.
Sure.
But I sat around thinking about it. And I was like, I need a show that was sort of serious, and I almost went with a Grey's Anatomy game that looked real dumb.
That would have been a better choice.
Ultimately, I decided on it's m.a.s.h. Now, m.a.s.h. m.a.s.h.
That you do understand why I have one quibble about picking this, right?
Okay, go ahead.
m.a.s.h. was a dramatic comedy.
Well, see, that's part of the reason I picked it. Because I'm covering every base with m.a.s.h. Okay.
All right.
So m.a.s.h. just a quick. Because Brent's already chastised me. Don't go into m.a.s.h. I'm going into it a little. m.a.s.h. was a TV show that ran in the United States for 11 seasons. It was based on a film called, it was based on a novel called m.a.s.h., a novel about 3 Army doctors, which spawned a film called m.a.s.h., which spawned a TV show called m.a.s.h. So it's pretty much been in every possible media.
Yes.
And again, this ran 11 seasons, 256 episodes. It ran forever, okay? And it was always a real popular show.
Yeah.
It started in 72 and ran till 83. And it's a show based on a mobile army surgical hospital during the Korean conflict, the Korean War, which took place from 50 to 53. So the show went far, far longer than the actual war, which I always thought was kind of amusing when it comes to that. So I mentioned m.a.s.h. stands for Mobile Army Surgical Hospital. One of the running gags on the show is that the hospital never moved. They only moved like maybe 2 times in the entire run of the show, which that's not realistic. In the show, you follows some surgeons and their exploits in the m.a.s.h. unit. The main surgeons are Hawkeye Pierce and Trapper John, and then you had other replacements. I'm not going to get too far into them. They used to mock this jerk surgeon called Frank Burns, and head nurse, which was Hot Lips Houlihan. They were like sort of the jerks of the show that Hawkeye and Trapper used to screw with. And there's a big cast, a revolving cast. I'm going to get too much into that. The weird thing about m.a.s.h. though is m.a.s.h. was a show. m.a.s.h. was a comedy about a very serious war. But in the show, incredibly serious and non-funny things happen.
Yes.
And so the show's known as a dark comedy or a dramedy. But the funny thing is, I don't think it's either one of those. I think it's both all the time. Because the comedy on it's not dark. It's dumb. It's dumb, idiot comedy. And the dramatic parts aren't black comedy. They're dramatic.
Yeah.
People get killed. They die on the table. They get shot in half. Horrible crap happens with this war. And so you've got a show, a very unique show, where in literally 2 different scenes, the guys are getting drunk on a still that they made booze of in their tent, and they're mocking this guy. And in the next scene, Soldier Bill is getting killed. It's a very bizarre show.
Yes.
It also had in America, it had a laugh track that they hated. And so the laugh track would only play during the non-surgery parts of the show. That doesn't mean anything, though, because there was tons of parts in surgery where they're just laughing and having a good time. Yeah. It's a big joke in there.
Yeah.
It's a weird show. And so I thought to myself, this is a serious show that gets funny, that spawned a game. I was like, I bet this game is something like, and so I was not disappointed. This game is a bit of an anomaly, the Brent, and the reason is, I picked the Coleco version. That's the one I told you to play, but you could have played any of the other versions of the game.
And I did.
And the funny thing is, this was not officially, I found this out after starting to look at this game. It's just that this was a prototype game. It was never officially released on the Colecovision. Now, it's widely available now. Yeah. But at the time, which is odd because it's a completed game. And this game was also ported to more systems than I thought. According to Wiki, this has ports to the, of course, there's the 2600 version, and there's the TI version. I know those 2 exist for sure. And there's also the ColecoVision version, which it was never released. And then, according to Wiki, there's an Intellivision and a VIC version and an Atari 8-bit version. I haven't played those or haven't tried them. This game actually isn't very well covered by most of the major sites. I mean, I don't know if it wasn't popular or whatever. This game was released in '83, developed by Doug Neubauer for Fox Video Games. This game was going to be a big deal. Fox Video Games paid a ton of money to get the m.a.s.h license, and this was going to be a game where they were going to drop some cash on it, and they wanted to make this game a real big release. And so this game was promoted under the Fox Games of the Century banner.
Whoa.
So you know it's gold. And as an added bonus, the guy that played Maxwell Klinger, Jamie Farr, was the official spokesman of the game. So if you watch the original m.a.s.h, Jamie Farr's character was this guy who used to dress like a woman to try to get released on a Section 8. That was his gimmick, and he was there for most of the run of the game. He's also you see him everywhere on the old game shows. Like, he was a game show man. In fact, a lot of the m.a.s.h cast were working on the game show circuit on top of everything else. So, again, this game not released on the Coleco, but you can't pick it up. So, what is this game? What makes it unique, and how does it fit this category? Well, you play as Hawkeye, and sometimes you play as Trapper if you're playing two players, and the two main doctors of m.a.s.h. And you have two different sets of goals in this, and I'm going to get into the other versions of this game later because they're sort of different. But in the Coleco version, you've got really basically two sets of screens. In the first part of this game, you and Trapper, for some reason, are piloting helicopters. Now, neither one of these guys ever flew anything in the show. They did occasionally ride in a chopper, and they even occasionally would ride down and rescue people, but they never flew them. In this game, not only are you flying it, you're going out to rescue people in the frozen, horrible cold.
Frozen tundra.
Well, North Korea, which, by the way, they do have horrible winters up there, apparently. And so what you're doing in this first section is flying your helicopters around to rescue downed soldiers. Now, this is pretty serious. These are downed soldiers, but it's hard to take it too seriously for two reasons. One, the soldiers lay on their back and flail like babies. It looks like an infant's down on the ground.
Actually, they look like little fires.
And then, secondly, when you go to rescue them, you just land your chopper directly on them.
Yeah, that's
good.
Didn't you know that's how you rescue people?
And then, thirdly, when you're playing in the one-player or two-player game, if you have two players, there's of course both choppers on the screen at once, and they compete to take each other's patients. So, if this was a real-life event, these downed airmen would be competing to rescue these poor guys. There's also a North Korean tank, or at least one and more as you get further on, that sits at the bottom of the screen and shoots. So that's the first game, and if you try to rescue once you rescue all the guys, that section ends. Then you go to the operating room game, and you would think this isn't going to be that funny, but it sort of is, because in the show, often the doctors take metal and shrapnel out of soldiers, right?
Sure, that's what
you're doing in this game. This game combines. This game is sort of like Operation, the board game, combined with like a maze game. I guess is the best way to put it. You basically are holding a scalpel or some sort of retrieval device.
I believe it's like tweezers.
Well, who knows what it is? But whatever it is, you're working it into there's a body laying on a table, and you're actually going in and you're pulling out shrapnel. Now, the tweezers or the whatever that is can go anywhere, but once you've attached the shrapnel to it, if you touch any part of the man's body, he gets. If you fail,
you lose. Right.
Now, here's the funny thing about that scene. So here you are, you're a crack surgeon. You can't save the guy. It's impossible to save him because once it's a timed operation. So once you run out of time, you that's it. And you hear the beep, 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 the heart monitor go, brrr, and he's gone. He's dead. So you can't ever save him. And that's across all platforms, by the way. You can't ever save the guy.
Tragedy of war, man.
And then you go back to the helicopter scene. Now, you're probably asking yourself, how do you lose in this game? Well, this is a game where you play basically a two-player game every time, even if you're playing against the computer. and when one of the two of you get to 1,000 points, the game ends.
Yeah.
And when you're in the operating room, every so often, every like 5 seconds, the computer gets like 6 points, something like that. So the longer it takes you to go through and get this shrapnel,
well, you get bonus points for everything you take out.
But he's also getting points on the side to keep it interesting. I never ever come close to beating the computer, no matter what skill level I tried.
Okay.
Now, I want to get into a few of the differences between this version and some of the other versions. I looked at 2 different versions, aside from the version we're looking at here of m.a.s.h. I looked at the Atari 2600 version. Now, the Coleco version on the helicopter level, it actually scrolls. So you've got multiple screens of guys to rescue. The Atari version has 1 screen. And so you've got 2 helicopters, a tank, but you've also got a plane, which I'll get to that in a minute. The operating, and by the way, the rules are pretty much the same on this part of the Atari game as they are on the Coleco.
Sorta. On this one, you have room to hold 5 people.
Yeah.
And once you collect those 5 people, you'll actually see a physical change of your copter. It's subtle. It just has like the place where you would set the cockpit area goes from being transparent to being full.
Fill.
And then you take them back to base, which is sort of different from the other one. Because the other one, you just go, you collect people, you collect people, you collect people.
Yeah.
This one, you have to keep going back and forth into the battlefield, and guys just randomly pop up.
In some ways, this is the Atari version. I don't know. I'd say they both have their pluses and minuses.
Well,
I think they're both fun.
I personally, I misunderstood Aaron. I played the Atari version.
You can play either one.
So he can go over the Colecovision version. I'll go over the Atari version in detail.
Well, I know I played both. So anyway, that's that screen. Now on the operation screen, the Colecovision guy looks a lot better. The Atari guy looks like a shmoo or a childbearing guy.
He looks a little Stay Puffy.
This guy would never make it. I can see why he got injured. He was probably out there looking for a Twinkie.
Oh, boo.
So anyway,
boo.
That's true. It's true. But otherwise, that part's the same. Now, the Atari version has different game modes that you don't get in the Coleco version. One of them, I read the docs, I was baffled. On the show, there's this old guy named Colonel Potter. He's the second colonel that takes over after the original colonel dies horribly in a plane crash in a very traumatic episode that happened directly after comedy, by the way. It's funny. And famously in the show, they didn't tell the cast what was going to happen at the end of the show. And they didn't tell anybody. So when they shot it, the cast's reactions were legitimate. They'd killed off one of the main characters for no good reason, just to do it. But anyway, in the show, Colonel Potter took over. Colonel Potter was an old guy. Harry Morgan played him from Dragnet and a bunch of other stuff. And he was a former cavalry officer. He was real old. Well, in this game, he leads a band of aerial paramedics that jump out of the plane at the top on the Atari version. But the funny thing is, if you read the documentation, they jump out of the plane and none of them have parachutes. It's written right in the docs. And so it's your job to fly under them and catch 40 before they all. You can't. First of all, that plane is packed with paramedics that have no parachutes. So I wonder about who thought that was a good idea. But still, that part of the game isn't on the Colecovision. Another thing I want to mention is that the Atari version has different. You aren't playing as Hawkeye and Trapper. You're actually your other copter is multiple people, and including Frank Burns, the bad guy, which makes more sense. Hawkeye and Frank Burns were adversaries on the show. It would make more sense for them to be against each other. I'm assuming because of the way the Colecovision 2-player worked, they didn't want someone to have to be the jerk, the dumb guy. I don't know why, but Frank Burns is amongst the people you go against in the Atari version.
That's on paper only. That's never actually mentioned in the game. Yeah, you never see it.
I will say the TI version of this is very interesting because it supports the voice. And so the game will, when you're playing this, it says, attention, incoming wounded, when you're playing on the helicopter version.
That's pretty good.
And when you're playing in the operating room, it says funny quips. Really, it's like, win some, lose some. Oh, knucklehead, like you screwed that up. Like it mocks you.
Why did we not play that version?
I didn't know it existed. So yeah, if you want to see the definitive hilarious version, by the way, saying win some, lose some as you let a guy die on the operating table, that's gotta fit the qualifications of this. Even on m.a.s.h, that's cold-blooded. So there you go. Anything else you want to throw in about the Atari version?
Oh yeah. Oh yes.
Go ahead.
Oh yes. So now see, like I said, I didn't play the Coleco version. I only played the Atari version. So I picked up some interesting details.
All right.
First thing, the scene where you're flying and picking up people. First of all, horrible controls. Horrible controls. It has trees, but you would think the copters would fly over the trees because that makes sense, but no. You actually hit the trees and bounce around. It's really stupid.
Yeah, that's the way it is in Coleco too.
But to pick up the people in the Atari version, you don't land. You just fly over top of them, and it'll pick you, and you'll pick them up. And if you get shot down, like an ambulance comes and grabs a copter and drives off, but you don't get credit for those people. You have to get them back to the hospital. So if you're flying around, you're collecting people, and you get shot down, as your copter comes down the screen, you can still collect fallen soldiers. As you're basically grabbing them, putting them in their chopper, and then it crashes and everyone dies.
Yeah,
I was like, what's going on?
I'm glad you mentioned that because on both versions of this, when you crash your chopper, but when you get shot down, which is the only way you can crash, ambulances drive out to presumably rescue. It's different on the Atari. On the Colecovision version, they literally drive right out to where your chopper's at, which leads me to wonder why they just didn't drive the ambulances out there in the first place, because they're a lot faster than the chopper.
Way faster.
But once they come out and then they leave, you're back in business. On the Atari version, I mean, the ambulances drive on the bottom of the screen. It's almost like there's a road down there.
Yeah.
And they drive out there. They don't actually come to get you. Presumably you walk out of the woods or something.
Well, they come and get you. Instead of taking you back to the hospital, they go the other way. They're like, I'm out of here.
Something else I want to mention before we move on the Coleco version of this is that there are different games on that one. There's not just Atari has different games too, but the Coleco has the games. One game is where, and these are both sort of on the Atari. One is a game where you do nothing but surgery, which that game sucks because the surgery part's the worst part. And the other game is it's a game where it sort of reverts back to the Atari in a way. It's a single screen game with the helicopters. And the helicopters are also smaller in this version, and it just puts out a zillion guys. I mean, the whole woods are crawling with I don't know what happened out here, and it's just you're continuously rescuing guys, and after you've cleared all the guys, they just respawn. There's like a zillion guys, and if you play on the higher levels in the Coleco, you can even have they'll have multiple tanks, and these tanks are crack shots.
Yeah.
They're super difficult to avoid on the later levels, because I went through and tried all the different skill levels as well. It's still neat, 2-player simultaneous action, kind of cool. And this game actually I thought was kind of, this sort of fits the show, kind of. Sort of. I don't know. What are you going to do? It's a match game.
Yeah, it sounds like the TI version. With the quips and stuff, I think that matches the
quips are good. Better. The quips are good.
Yeah, because the Atari version has one quip whenever you fail at a surgery, but I can't remember what it was. It was so dumb. It's just text at the top of the screen.
I think they actually say that clip in the other version. Now we did get some action on this, Brent. We got one review on this thing. By the way, there were no formal reviews and there was no eBay because you can't buy this. Now I have heard that there are people that will actually sell you a knocked up version. It's pregnant. A knockoff, sort of a make your own version. And I've got a box, so someone somewhere either printed a box or that was a box. And who knows? But there's box art for it. So anyway, Pajako had a chance to play this, and he chimes in. He says, "I was expecting the usual licensed game train wreck, but I was pleasantly surprised. Okay, it's a wacky concept to start with, but it works quite well. Controls are a little fiddly. What I found bizarre was the fact that Hawkeye and Trapper seem to be in competition with each other to collect wounded soldiers. Trapper does not hesitate to steal your guns if you're not quick enough. That's true. The wounded soldiers in the field look like babies, and the surgery level is a bit out there. One, the guy looks like he's trying to remember if he left the iron on, and two, it's a bit harsh with zero room for error. Also, you keep playing time runs out, and the guy apparently buys the farm because the beeps go continuous. Did I kill the guy or what? My only real complaint is the Korean tank. They are on you like steak on poop, and the only way to get them away is to hover to the side, wait for the tanks to move, and then swoop in and grab your guy, if Trapper hasn't already. I had a quick play the 2600 version, and the Coleco version is the better version. Not quite Choplifter, but I've played worse. 6 out of 10. I will second that remark. I would say that's about right. A fun game, and really even the Atari version is not that bad. But the TI version is going to be on my list for a future play. Any final thoughts on this one, Brent?
I did not find this as favorable. Again, I only played the Atari version. The controls are really, really bad. The hit detection on the helicopter level is really, really bad. I would definitely say if you've got an emulator running, and this is on the list, go ahead and check it out, but do not go out of your way. I did not think it was very good.
I would give this one a shot, actually. I thought this was a pretty fun game. So what do you got for us, Brent? Let's get into yours.
All right. I went a much different direction.
Yeah, you did.
I went and said, you know what? What is a game that wants to be serious? And not only did it fail in the beginning, but it failed so hard that it kind of looped around and embraced that failure and kind of made it its own. And I'm taking a look at Hitman, Codename 47.
Yeah, I never, of all the years that I never ever played it. This is the first time I've ever played this game.
I am embarrassed to say I did not realize this was the first Hitman game, and I had not played it before.
What do you mean you didn't
either.
realize it was the first one? You said you were playing Hitman.
I said I was playing the first Hitman, right?
Yeah.
And I thought it was a completely different game.
What did you think it was?
I thought it was Bloodlines.
Well, you're dumb.
Well,
there's no
two.
similarities to those, are there?
No, yeah, it's Hitman Bloodlines.
Hitman. Okay, gotcha.
But
because I heard that game was way better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm sorry, it was Blood Money.
Blood. There's a whole lot more coming.
The one we're looking at though is the Codename 47, released in the wonderful year of 2000, November of 2000 in North America, December of 2000 in Europe. No Asian release of this game, which I was actually kind of surprised about. Developed by IO Interactive. This has a few unique qualifiers, Aaron, that I kind of dispute, but I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. Yes. It is said that this is the first game to have ragdoll physics. It's saying that it beat Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park was the first game that had ragdoll physics. This was the second one. I don't think that was actually true.
What do you think is the first one?
I think there were many games in between that had ragdoll physics.
All right.
It also says that this was the first game to include real-world physics, and what it means by that is when you run into vegetation and stuff like that, the vegetation actually moves.
Oh, how is that going to happen? But yeah, you mean like wheat and stuff.
Like when you run into leaves, the leaves actually move around your character.
I got it.
I also dispute that, but I have not.
Who are the people that say this if you don't believe them?
I mean, this is just common knowledge out there in the world.
I didn't know.
But that is not what we're here to discuss today. And like I said, if those things are true or untrue, I can't at this time say one way or the other. We are here to talk about the man, the myth, the legend himself, Agent 47, in all his bald glory.
Yeah, finally, a bald hero.
This game opens up in a tutorial where you are waking up from a deep slumber, a drug sleep, whatever, and there's a man over a loudspeaker talking about how wonderful and perfect you are, and how intelligent and amazing you are for getting up and walking around the room, and you figured this out so quickly. And then he brings you over to some weaponry, and he says, "Oh, you've picked it up," and it describes your weaponry, and it's like a proud papa talking about his boy, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, can you believe what old Johnny did?
It's pretty weird.
And that's actually what is happening, because this guy, Agent 47, is lab grown, basically, and was raised to be the super killer assassin, and this was one of your handlers. So the dialogue in that scene is, I mean, yes, it's cheesy, but it's at least fairly well done. The voice actor did an okay job of expressing himself. But it sets the scene, right? You are this assassin, this born-bred assassin that's going to go out in this world and do all these killings. And that's some serious stuff, right?
Yeah.
You're getting these contracts. You're taking out drug cartels. You're taking out police chiefs. You're talking, military installations. You're looking for nukes at one point later in the game. All this, has some pretty serious tones going on. And then Agent 47 speaks.
Yeah.
And God bless him.
Yes. He's not the perfect man for speaking.
He does better in later versions of this game, but he is the driest, most awkward voice actor I believe I've ever heard.
If you were grown in a vat, this is probably how it would go. I need to go to the bathroom.
I need to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And he doesn't speak often, right? So it kind of shifts the mood when you actually get into a cutscene or a dialogue, because you got the series, you're stealthing around. The whole game is stealth based, and then when you do have this interactions and he speaks, it's so jarring from the mood of the rest of the game that you have to cackle. You have to laugh when you hear it, because it's so misplaced.
There's a bunch of bad voice acting in this. Let's be fair.
There is a bunch, but he's
horrible.
Far and away the worst.
It's like they had a contest. This is like it's like Trapper and Hawkeye. Who can do the worst read of this text?
At one scene later in the game, you save a woman. She's been held captive, and she says, "Listen, I'll give you the combination of the safe if you get me out of here, right?" And so you rescue her, and as part of the reward, she leans over and kisses you, and he actually goes, "Er?"
Yeah.
I was like, "What?"
Yeah. I saw that.
So in later versions of Hitman, they kind of lean into this. One of the big things with Hitman is you can dress up in other people's clothes.
Oh, yeah.
That way you gain access to other parts where you would get found out if you went in on your normal suit that you start with.
I mean, I got something to say about that, too.
Well, but the later games, they start leaning into some of the wackiness. You might dress up in a fast food clothing outfit, clown outfits. The weapons start getting more absurd. Well, you've got the serious stuff like poisons and guns and piano wire and that kind of stuff. But you also have like rubber ducks. You're throwing bricks at people that carve around walls. So I personally believe that they started leaning into the silliness. But this game, the silliness was not on purpose.
That's what made it better.
Yeah, they weren't trying to be silly. Just the voice acting was so last minute, an afterthought. I don't know why it ended up the way it was. But real quick, let's go to the gameplay, just in case you have no idea what this game is, okay? You play as Hitman. This is a game all about giving you a situation and allowing you to handle that situation the way you want. Some levels, for this is the first game of the series, some levels are pretty, you kind of have to do it this way, but a lot of them are open enough that you can line up your shots, you can have several different paths to accomplish the goal. The goal is always to kill someone or to recover something, etc. And this was one of the first games that really gave you this much freedom. And it shows because it's rough around the edges, but for them to take the chance to make this type of game and to pull it off as well as they did, they get a lot of credit in my eyes for that. Do you not think it was pulled off well?
Listen, when you picked this game, I
Right.
had two thoughts.
Okay.
One, how am I going to play this game? Because I didn't know, because it was old. And I did find I was able to get this to run in a current window.
This game only released on Windows, by the way.
Yeah, and so it was released. I mean, you're talking like, I will say, you won't have any trouble running it. But I mean, you in terms of from what you've got, in
You
your
have
system,
to run it in OpenGL.
I didn't run it that way.
You ran it in Direct 3D.
And I had to change. Listen, it was
Why?
Getting the game and playing the game were a hassle as usual. But all that said, when this game loaded up, I had heard of this game because they had a movie based on it and some other stuff. You know, it's the bald guy with the UPC symbol on his head.
Yes.
I knew this. So anyway, I'm starting playing this game, and you got to remember when this game came out. It doesn't. The year 2000 doesn't seem like a long time ago.
2 decades ago.
But I mean, if you think about a game like this, what's changed? Everything. When Brent picked this, I'm like, I don't see if this is gonna fit the category. It fits, brother, because this game is as goofy as they come. There are multiple things I like about this. For one, you're a big, tall, bald guy with a UPC symbol on his head.
Right.
So when he comes up, let's say you go into a restaurant, right, and you want to infiltrate the restaurant, he'll just walk in the back of the restaurant. No one cares. He goes back there. There's a guy because everyone in the game pretty much walks on these set paths, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll just be in one little room and just walk back and forth. You know that shtick?
Well, yeah.
And so your guy can just walk into the room, just a little room, okay? And there's a guy walking back and forth, and you just walk and stand there. And he'll look right at you. He'll turn around. Then you choke him with piano wire. Kill him. He's dead. You drag his body when you put on his clothes. Now, for example, I played in like this Asian restaurant or whatever.
Yeah.
And so you're the only non-Asian, huge, tall, white, bald guy with a UPC symbol with a waiter outfit on. Who's buying this? It's like fistful of yen.
Well,
these guards are oblivious to this guy.
To be fair,
I gotta hear this.
I know the level you're talking about.
Yeah.
The way you're supposed to do that is it's a setup between the chief of police and 2 rival gangs, and they're talking. They're talking about a power struggle.
Right.
And the objective is to go in, kill them all, or kill at least 2 of them, and plant a piece of evidence to make it look like the third one's the problem.
A medallion from one of the tongs.
If you get to the guy that is the third wheel, you choke him out and you put on his clothes and you go to the meeting. The 3 don't know who's being sent. You know, they're just representing each party. The chief of police will actually say, there's a random dialogue, but the chief of police will actually say, it's like, I can't believe they sent a white guy. So they do try.
Listen, I didn't even do any of that. I went up to the first waiter I saw and choked him out.
Well,
I didn't do any of that crap because guess what? That's not how this agent works.
Well,
this agent's a gun-toting maniac. I go in there
kind of missing the point of the game then.
But my point is, you can walk anywhere in the game, not just here, and just walk right up behind the guy and follow him for like 10 minutes, back and forth on him, finally just kill him. I mean, it's ludicrous, that kind of stuff. It was funny.
The way the game is set up, because you're kind of misrepresenting it. I know you're not doing it on purpose.
I am not. That's exactly what you can do.
The game, from a programming standpoint, there are public areas and there are private areas. In a public area, you can literally go anywhere you want, be as suspicious as you want, as long as you don't pull out a gun. In a private area, the game says, are you still in your suit? If you are still in your suit, people become alarmed.
Yeah.
Okay? If you are wearing the clothes of someone who would be in this area, the game says, okay, you're fine. So, I mean, it's rudimentary nowadays to be that black and white with it, but for the context of the year 2000, this game, it was brilliant coding.
I understand, but it's funny. That's what I'm saying.
It is funny.
There's a scene where in the same demo I played, there's a scene where you meet this hooker, all right? You have to take her to the roof of this thing, okay? And so you go in there and talk to her, and then you go to the elevator, go to the roof, and there are guards all over the place, all right? And you're just casually walking around with this person on the roof. They don't care.
Yeah.
And then you open this gate and let her out right in front of the guards. They don't care. And then you leave. And she goes, here you go. And you leave. And no one cares what you're doing.
Yeah.
I will say the game is a lot of fun because there is really no right answer. Yeah. You can sort of sometimes get away with doing dumb crap.
You can go in as a murder hobo if you want.
You could go in, like, I liked it just to shoot people. The aiming and stuff was actually pretty good. You had to, of course, the default controls in this use the arrow keys, but they've got built-in WSAD. You can change them. So this is just when that was starting to be a thing, you know?
Yeah, you can really tell because the default is number key, but it has one button click to change it to WADS.
I had some trouble with you can use the mouses, you can use the right click to, like, do interactive menus on people, talk to them and stuff. But that was a little weird.
It was fiddly.
How were you doing it? It was I had trouble with that a little bit.
The controls in this are unfortunate.
The controls are okay. It's just the interactive part.
No, they're unfortunate. Agent 47 does not have the ability to walk backwards.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Yeah. When you press back, what would be down for any other game, you actually walk forward at a slower pace. Now, I think it's awesome that they have your ability to walk slow. It's not a sneak per se, but it's just a walk slow. But when you run right up against the counter and you just want to back up a little bit so you can see something, you have to basically shimmy back or turn around, take a few steps and turn back around. Also, the mouse interactive bits are super fiddly.
They are. It took me a while to figure out how to use them.
Yeah, you can alternatively just walk up to something, hit the space bar as your all-encompassing action button.
Yeah.
And it does have mouse wheel support. Yeah. So you can flip through weapons and holster your weapons real quick through the mouse wheel.
I thought that was good. I like that part.
So, I mean, some of the control aspects of this were very innovative, and some of them needed a lot of work. And they did get it better in the later games.
Yeah, I've heard the second one is a quantum leap for this one. But I mean, all that said,
yes.
First of all, it does fit the category quite nicely.
Yeah.
Because I can't tell you the number of times that I cackled when something happened.
Yes.
I mean, people fell off stuff. I fell off stuff. Funny things happen. Just running by adversaries that just stood there or would let you choke them or kill them, I thought was funny.
One thing I want to mention, the scene where you're setting up that trio and they're working it out and you're supposed to go in and kill everybody.
Yeah.
If you are still dressed in your suit and you walk into because they're meeting at like a bar. If you walk into the bar, the police chief will get up, walk over to you and say like, sorry man, you got to leave.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's a fade out and a fade back in of him basically kicking you out of the bar. Now, if you turn back around, and he's got guards outside this thing. If you turn around and run directly back into the bar, he'll walk over to his seat, sit down, stand back up, walk back over to you and throw you back out.
Yeah.
But you can run him around that restaurant because he's walked at just a snail's pace. I ran him around the table into the back room because I was going to choke him out back there, but I got kind of turned around, so I had to run him back into the main room. So you can really
I never thought about that. Did you actually choke him? Could you choke him out back there?
Yeah. Well, I eventually did it different than the intended way.
Yeah. I
got into the bathroom. Asked for the bathroom key, got it, and then just stood in the bathroom. Was like pew pew.
It's something else I wanted to mention. You just reminded me of. When you start this game, it'll let you put your load out on there. You can have a flak jacket, and you can have weapons and cravats and all stuff. But at one time, I forgot to pick any weapons. And so I started the game with no weapon, okay? You can't do anything. And so I went into the bar, and if you look around, there's a
kitchen knife.
There's a Perry knife basically stuck in the bar. So that was my only weapon. And that actually was kind of fun to go around and try to kill people with this tiny little knife.
Because if you kill someone with a gun, you can pick up their gun.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff is really good, too.
Yeah. And the fact that you could drag their corpses around was funny. Because you could drag them in all kinds of goofy spots. You know, it's a dumb game, but I kind of sort of want to go play it now because I watched a lot of playthroughs and plus played my part, and I enjoyed it. And you're right, the voices of the guys, that is probably the funniest part. When he finally spoke, I about fell out of the chair.
Yes.
Like, he sounds like a guy that should be in, like, the Dunwich Horror. You know, it's like, I need to go to the bathroom. Very disturbing. Dude.
Overall, if you're going to check out a Hitman game, you might want to start later in the series. But it cannot. This reviewed, by the way, when this came out in 2000, it reviewed mid. It was in the 60s and 70s range. But this obviously made dramatic comebacks. They tweaked some things. They saw what they did wrong, what they did right. And now this game is world renowned. Has
world renowned?
Oh yeah, it has many sequels, theatrical releases, television shows, comic books. It really encompasses. It has become a phenomenon, just the same like Lara Croft.
Did you ever watch the film?
No,
I didn't either.
No.
I will tell you, if you're wanting to try this at the house, you got two options. All right, we went through both of them. One, you can go. First of all, this is still being sold, so I guess maybe it is
$8.
$8. I ain't paying that, but there's a demo out there you can play.
Yep.
That's a pretty large demo.
It is. It's actually about a third of the game.
If you can get it working, you're golden. It's not that. I got it working in about 10 minutes to fiddle.
Yeah, it's not hard.
You could also buy, if you have the Xbox Game Pass, you can get the Hitman Trilogy.
Yes.
Which is it was like 60 gigs or something to download, and in this game, I guess they redid the game in that. So it's not quite. I would kind of want to play the one we played. I would want to play the
trilogy has the new engine and explores old levels.
Yeah, screw that.
So,
play the original. That was better.
Yeah. We both play the original.
And also, you can download the original before you could get. It's probably smaller than the loader it takes to download the new one.
Yeah.
This thing was a monster. Was this thing? Can you get these boxes on eBay or something? Can you?
I didn't check. I mean, you can get it on Steam for $8.
Yeah, there you go.
What's the value of it? It's $8.
Yeah, we got no reviews on this thing, Brent. So no one played Hitman.
Right.
I'm surprised how few people I talked to had actually played this game. So there you go. So any final thoughts on this wacky category?
This was a unique one.
Yeah. I will say this is the only way I would ever have gotten to play m.a.s.h on this show.
That's it.
I could think, and Hitman was not the game we normally would play. You know, every week we spin this thing, we come up with something more and more zany, and guess what?
Spin the what, Aaron?
The wheel. Let's spin it again, dude.
All right.
Fire it up.
Let's tell everyone at home, Aaron.
Yeah, because I don't even know what you put on there this week. What do you got?
Our retro rewind is the Game King 1 through 3.
I am the Game King. Remember that?
Great.
I think I sang that over and over.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
And the new piece is wrestling games. Real quick, I'm going to go over some of the other pieces for those listening out in listen land.
Oh boy, wrestling games.
We have the Sharp MZ700. We have me sneezing. We have games marketed towards girls, light gun games, French designed games, Japanese arcade exclusives,
and all over the world.
The Apricot F1, the Super Icon, and the Wonder Swan Black and White.
You've got one of those.
That is the possibilities that we have.
There's a couple scary ones in there, Brent. I'm not going to lie. You really spin that thing with some gusto, don't you? And the winner is, what did we get to, Brent?
We got games marketed towards girls.
Go.
Suggested by John, Boat of Car Schaller.
You know, being fresh off that Barbie stream a couple months ago, the girls have been underrepresented quite often in this category. So I'm going to try to pick something that I think reflects a good girls game. You know, is this even a category anymore?
Yes.
In 2020.
Yeah.
All right. You can't really. Isn't everything marketed for everyone?
No, that's not fair. I don't believe that's fair. I think as children, there is a mental difference between small girls and small boys. I'm not saying they can't like each other's stuff, nothing like that. And I think as age progresses, it comes to a point where games are just games.
You know,
But I think at a younger age, I do think that you can diversify games into those categories.
you know, and I'm sure we'll get into that more philosophical discussion this next week. But I think for the most part, girls have really been underserviced when it comes to games. I think they've got a lot of garbage out there, and I think the majority of the games in the old days are almost all for marketed toward guys.
Yes.
Maybe that's changed too. I haven't, you know, being a guy, and also not playing modern stuff. I don't know what exactly is out there.
Well, I know. I think the game market is still heavily swayed towards male audiences.
I can tell you, I two things pop into my head right now. One, I'm not playing anything in the Barbie line of games.
No,
I can tell you that right now. And two, this will give me a great reason to show my Barbie game footage as our warm-up next week. I can just resurrect it and stick it right in there. It works out great because it was all Barbie all the time, brother. Anything you want to talk to the people about before we shove off this week to Brent?
Boat Fest.
Yes.
Boatfest.info. Go take it a check. I'm not going to go into the big spiel. We'll do the big spiel next week. What do you got?
Yeah, I want to thank everyone that endured the International Computer Club last night. We had major internet issues, international internet issues from all over the world, specifically North America. They had horrible, horrible storms up in Canada last night. It damaged Frank from RetroRewind.ca's house and devastated the neighborhood, and people were killed. But also amongst the problems they had was some of the internet backbone up there got like jacked up. But anyway, we had major problems last night, but we still got through it. We powered through. If you're interested in watching International Computer Club, it is available on the Amigos Stream Team channel on YouTube. That's 3 different words. You can also catch it on our Twitch channel.
And if you aren't subscribed to the Amigos Stream Team channel, seriously, it's one click. And you're real soon, you're going to be getting some videos that are, you're already getting videos that are exclusive to there.
Oh, gosh. And I put all kinds of I found all kinds of stuff that I forgot I had. Yeah. And I put up there. So if you're
looking for wackiness, that's the place to go.
Yeah, so there you go. I think that's all we've got coming up. Just the briefest of blips that after Boat Fest, the month after in July there, we will be getting into talking about the Amigathon and how that's going to go down this year. We've started preliminary discussions on how we're going to play it this year, so we'll get into that too. But the next big thing on the docket is going to be Boat Fest. It should be a lot of fun. Give them that URL again.
Boatfest.info.
Boatfest.info. Tickets still available. They're dirt cheap. Frank will be there, so it's a good time to get your stuff recapped, the whole 9 yards. All right, let's take this sucker to the house. Until next week, Brent. Try to be serious, if possible.
Thanks for joining us today. We really hope you enjoyed the show. A special thank you to Duncan Styles for our vector-style graphics and BarkBit for our amazing music. Would you like to help keep ARG spinning? You can do so at patreon.com/ARG Presents. Just like these fine folks. Dryrlent 17, Laron Garut, Templar Mar, Z9K9, Jerry Dennington, John Dykeman, Retroology, Airshack, Texas Foosballer, Sundown, O-Wrong, Super Tech Boy, David Terrence, Mr. B, Roushi, Graham W. Vetke, Dave Velociraptor, Bernhardt Lucas, Steve Rasmussen, Anthony Jarvis, Bitterblitter, Pajako 6502, Kevin Bean, Andy Jones, Andy Craig, Rob Black O'Hara, Jason Warnes, Mitsuyama, Chris Foles, Frodo Edel, The Slow Norris, Terry Howard, Olaf Hope, and Rolo. They all have access to our Discord channel, their name called out in the credits, and visualized in the ending scene. Have an idea for a wheel piece? You can send it to us at argpresents@mail.com.